Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to Around the Globe with Dr. G. Today, I am speaking with our guest, Sergeant Andrew Thomas of St. Albans Police Department. Sergeant Thomas, it's so nice to have you here with us today.
No, thank you very much for inviting me. Really excited for our conversation.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. No problems at all. How's your day been going so far?
It's been good. Yeah, it's Friday afternoon. Sorry, Friday, is it afternoon? No, Friday morning. Yeah, so it's been good. Yeah, nervous about today.
Oh, it's all good. It's very, yeah, no problems at all. Well, let me jump into the first question
Yeah.
here. What led you to join the police department in particular, and how is this career path? Has this always been kind of like a dream for you? Have you always been the kind of person, little kid, that says, "Man, I just want to be a police officer"?
I would like to say yes. I was always that child, but I wasn't. So my background's quite interesting and a little bit complicated.
Okay.
So I grew up in northwest London from a broken home, so single parent home, and I was always taught that to stay away from the police. I was always taught that the police were racist, that there was issues there. Taught to fear the police.
Okay.
And I fell in with the wrong crowd, so I started getting in trouble. Nothing too bad, but just hanging around with the wrong sorts of people, not doing the things that were productive towards my future.
Yeah.
I got expelled from multiple secondary schools, and I left secondary school with no education, so I had no GCSEs. And really, I think most people thought, well, he's not going to go anywhere. He's not going to do anything. And that was told to me multiple times.
Okay.
So my first real good, memorable interaction with the police was a police officer who was dealing with me for one of those times that I was being silly.
Yeah.
And he had a conversation with me and spent some time with me and spoke about the fact that if I didn't sort my life out, he said, I can tell that you're a motivated, driven young man, but if you don't sort your life out, this is what's going to happen to you. Oh. And at that time, lots of my friends were ending up in prison or getting injured, or all the sort of stuff that's not really conducive to a good life.
Yeah.
And he basically said to me, I was in the army, I bet you won't join the army and sort your life out. So that got me thinking, and at that time I was still a little bit rebellious, and I thought, well, I'll show him. So the next day, I went down to the Army Recruitment Centre and I joined the Army, where I spent the next 10 years in the Army.
Oh, my goodness.
And from there, when I left the Army, I learned a lot about respect, about working with others. You sort of learn much more than what's outside of growing up in London.
Yeah.
And I left and I did an office job in London for a little while. Really, really good money. But I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't getting that sense of fulfillment that I was getting out of the army, of helping people, doing something worthwhile. And then I remembered that police officer, and I thought, let me give that a go. Which is when I joined the Hertfordshire Constabulary as a special constable.
Wow!
Yeah,
Wow!
yeah.
What a story! And as you said, a lot of people that you probably grew up with, if you look at their lives today, they probably ended up where that police officer said, you may be going in that direction.
Absolutely. I've got no doubt in my mind that if I hadn't chosen the path that I'd chosen, due to cutting down all the possibilities for me for a lack of education and everything else, that would have been me, perhaps in prison, or perhaps even worse. There's lots of violence and things like that. Maybe. So that definitely set me on my career path. Yeah. And after becoming a special constable, I then joined up as a regular PC, so police constable. Now here I am.
Wow,
so
wow. That's what a wonderful story, an inspirational story. It's a great story, especially for a lot of youth. When you're in your youth, obviously, you get confused. You want to try certain things.
Yeah.
You're rebellious.
Yeah.
And what a good fortune to meet a person that led you in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow,
yeah.
Wow. Awesome.
I think what's also amazing about it, and I don't know who this person is, because obviously you can't do background checks on yourself. There's sort of things, but he was from Hertfordshire Constabulary as well.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a long time ago, but there's a possibility that person is still here now.
Yeah. Hey, who
And
knows?
he won't even know what an impact that he's made on somebody.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, who knows if he happens to watch this show and he sees your face and say, "Wow, I know that guy."
maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll see. We'll see. Well, I want to ask you about your job
Yep.
right now. What do you love most about what you do, and what do you like least?
Wow. Okay. So my job is twofold. So I'm currently the Positive Action Sergeant for Hertfordshire Constabulary, which basically means that my job is to help repair bridges between communities and the police.
Okay.
It's to help get other people into the police from protected backgrounds, so black, ethnic minorities, people with neurodiversity, etc. And then also mentor and coach them whilst they're inside the constabulary. Because there's no point attracting more people like myself into constabulary if we're not then giving them the tools whilst they're inside to succeed. So what do I like about it? I like the fact that I'm still operational, so I still go out 2-3 times a week. So I'm still out there policing my local community. I'm still out there on the streets, engaging with the public. But I also have a real chance in my current role to deal with the strategic side of things. So to really shape the future in terms of how our other police officers then engage with communities or overcome challenges. So for me, I go home happy because I know I've done something to make a difference, and it sounds really cheesy and really corny, but there's a lot to be said for just being happy and knowing that you've done something worthwhile. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes absolute sense. I mean, for anyone in any career, I would hope that what they wish to do is exactly what you were talking about. So, as corny as it may sound, it's true. Absolutely, absolutely. What would you say you like the least?
So, paperwork.
Okay.
Coming from a background where, again, I didn't do all my exams, I was, looking back, I was very bright. I think I perhaps had a bit of ADHD, etc. But I was never very academic. So paperwork side of things has always been a challenge. But because of that, I make sure that my paperwork is even better than everybody else's. I put more effort and time into it. When studying for my sergeant's exam, for example, I made sure that I got a very good score. So paperwork is the least side of things, but that's a boring answer. I suppose the interesting answer is sometimes the way that you're treated as police officers, sometimes by our own communities. Sometimes, but there's reasons behind that, and there's some people do not like the police. Some people have misconceptions about the police. Some rightly so, not so much. So that's the least part of it. Sometimes you're trying to help or do something and you're getting a negative reaction. That's quite disheartening sometimes. But then that's our job as police officers to deal with that in a way that is, educating people or understanding why they might have these concerns and then thinking of solutions for it. So that's the least part, I'd imagine, is the bit that I don't.
And I appreciate your honesty in that as well. Thank you so much, which actually leads me to the next question. Obviously, I mean, the first time I met you, I knew that you had a passion for ensuring that underrepresented communities are well served. What are the deficits that you've seen and how can those be resolved?
So, I met you in a barbershop, didn't
I?
Yeah, so I met you in the barbershop and we were talking about this. I've got a real passion for it. And it's because I think, looking at myself, I come from an underrepresented community. What are the deficits? Education. I think education is the biggest key to all of this. And I'll give you an example. I'm out there trying to do a job and I stop a car, I pull over a vehicle, and I might be doing it just to check a driver's license. I might be doing it because a crime has been committed locally. And I stop a young black man or even a middle-aged black man or female. As a white officer or as a mixed race or black officer like myself, it makes no difference. Often, what will come from that person is, you've only stopped me because I'm black. You're racist. Now, there's two ways to deal with that. And for me, I think it's really important that police officers are educated as to why they believe that. they're educated as to the historical racism that has taken place long ago,
Yeah.
the generational knowledge that is passed down from communities, from our elders in our own communities, as to the trauma that they've gone through, generational trauma. So I think if we can educate police officers and the public at the same time, which is why I love my job, because that's exactly what I do, we can really overcome those hurdles and start to make progress. But yeah, definitely that has to be the deficit, the knowledge side of things, and we're doing some real good work around that. So our new police officers, for example, they are we're currently in the planning stages, which will go live soon. But once they finish training, they will come on a 2-day package with my team, where we'll invite in members of the black community to talk about their own experiences, their lived experiences, so they can understand what they went through, back then. We're going to get them in to meet members of the Islamic community, the Jewish community, Christian community. So they're going to have a real training package on everyone's different cultures, the history, and how they should react to these things, because it's our duty and our responsibility as police officers to react to that in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that when you mention education. It is really a key to beginning to solve these problems.
I think what we all have to realise is that these problems won't be solved in my lifetime, and especially not in my working career. These are problems that will be solved in generations to come. So if we're looking for quick fixes, we're not going to get quick fixes. We have to work and continue working to make these changes so that our children, and that's what's important to me, my children and our grandchildren, have a better cohesive way of living.
Oh, absolutely. If we do nothing, then of course the next generation won't be served at all.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
You do make a good point, and keep going. I want to ask you, and you kind of alluded to this as we were talking, there are some within the minority community that view the police department negatively. Where do you think this kind of perspective, where do you think it comes from? And what can we do to perhaps help change that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So, I mean, first of all, I'd say that this is a global problem. This isn't a national problem. It's not a problem with police in the United Kingdom specifically. It's a global problem, and there's so much history behind it. We could talk for days about the history. You look at recent events that have taken place. Globally, you've got the murder of George Floyd, for example. That's
what a disaster that was.
Disgusting, isn't it? If you look at nationally, you've got the Brixton riots back in the 80s, I believe it was. You've got the murder of Stephen Lawrence. So we have a lot of history behind these feelings and emotions, and I think it's important to not discount that. We have to accept that. Not me personally, and probably very few people in the police at the moment, in terms of Hertfordshire Constabulary, were involved in anything like that. But we as police officers have to accept that historically, lots and lots has gone wrong. And again, this has gone wrong over generations and generations, and that generational trauma has been passed down. So it's not going to be changed. It's going to take generations to change. So we have to accept that, and we can't discount those feelings. And I think once you accept that, then you can begin to understand it, you can educate yourself to it, and you can work together. But you have to accept that that is what happened, and it may not be mainstream now, it may not be happening everywhere now, but we still have to accept that that has happened, and then work towards educating ourselves, both as members of the public, as members of diverse communities, and as police officers, to make those changes.
A lot of people are eager to just move on, move forward. But we can't move forward until we address and accept the issues that we all face.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel really lucky. And I'll tell you why I feel lucky. As Hertfordshire Constabulary is well above the curve in things that they're doing to try and combat this. So we've got the Race Inclusion Board, which is a board that meets monthly, and that is comprised of members of our black community who will come in and they will tell us how we can do things better, what we can do better, any issues and things that they're seeing out in the community, and they direct that and they speak directly to our senior leadership.
Okay.
So our chief
that's
constable,
brilliant.
honestly, it's amazing. So our chief constable, our deputy chief constable, all of our senior exec will come to these meetings and listen to members of the black community. So for me, that's amazing.
Yeah.
In terms of internally, we have the Hearts Black and Asian Police Association, which is what I'm part of.
Okay.
So that's a police association set up to help support black and Asian officers,
Okay.
as well as other non-visible ethnicity officers. Okay. And again, the exec will come and they will speak to those officers to listen to them. Obviously, we have work around the Race Action Plan, which is basically a plan to help combat these problems, to get rid of any issues that there are, and that's collated from lots of different reports that have been done within the UK. So. And then you've got people like me. I'm employed, which I think is incredible. I'm employed to do the job that I do, which is what I love, which is trying to find solutions, trying to educate officers. So for me, Hertfordshire Constabulary are doing an amazing amount of work. However, I almost feel like sometimes we're in a bubble because nationally, confidence in policing is at its lowest. Yeah. I can't talk about globally because it's not something I'm really aware of, but nationally it is. But when you speak to our community in Hertfordshire, actually they're very positive about it. Just to go on a little bit, I went to an event recently with the Jewish community, and I spoke to a rabbi, because I don't just do black and Asian, I do all the sort of protected characteristics. And I asked him, how are you feeling with the police and the community in Hertfordshire? And he said the same thing. I think we're in a little bit of a bubble here in Hertfordshire, because actually when I speak to the people within my synagogue, the Jewish people within St Albans, it actually was, he says, we feel really lucky and really privileged.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow, that's really good to hear. Yeah, I know you said you're in a bubble, but there has to be a great and positive example that others can look at and point to this department and say, well, this department is trying to do something to combat these problems.
I'm very lucky because I also travel around, so it's not to just sing Hertfordshire's praises, because of course, everywhere has problems that need to be dealt with. So it would be ignorant of me to say we have no problems. However, we also work very close with the Metropolitan Police. I was there recently for their Ramadan Iftar event, and they do some amazing things with their Islamic communities, which we took away. And actually, our cultural day that I spoke about, the 2 days with after training, is something that I got an idea from the Met. They do something similar, so I've almost stolen or appropriated their ideas. So it's also about taking ideas from other places, and you could go up to Manchester and they might do something actually better than us. But we're very lucky in that we can travel to these places, speak to these people, do benchmarking requests to find out what they're doing, and then bring that in here as well. So
it's great. I mean, you're open to learning from
absolutely.
one another, so that is awesome. Society in general is faced with all sorts of challenges, petty crimes, more serious ones. Is there room for optimism at all, or are we doomed to a free fall?
So I think I'd be in the wrong job if I said there was no optimism. But I also know how hard it is sometimes to see that optimism. So as a police officer, we go to the worst of jobs. You can go to jobs where children have been mistreated, for example. You can go to deaths and violent crimes. And it is tough. And as I said, I've got 3 children. 2 of them are 11 years old. And as they're growing up, I think, this is horrible. I'm concerned for them growing up. But we also go to some really good things, and each of these incidents, sometimes you see things that really make you think, this is amazing, this is beautiful. Let me give you an example. So someone is assaulted, and it's a horrific assault. At the same time, you'll see someone who's there helping them and treating them, who's taking time out of their day, and you'll see members of the public come up and help out with that. At the same time, you go to jobs where a woman's given birth in the street, and we've got, again, people who have no idea how to deliver a baby, who are helping them to deliver babies. Wow. So I think it's very easy, and it's very sensational as well in terms of the media, to look at all the negativity in this world, but there is so much positivity as well. And I get motivation from that. And it might be that we spend a week going to some really horrific stuff, but then we just go to something really, really beautiful, something really uplifting. Wow. and it's just incredible, you know. So I think there's definitely hope for optimism, and I still believe that there's more goodness in this world than there is bad.
I really like that because, yeah, of course. I mean, you give a balanced set of maybe you actually speak about it in a balanced way. There are horrible things going on, but at the same time, yeah, there's still reason for hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think when there is no reason for hope, then it's all doomed, isn't it? And that's the end, isn't it?
It is. But thank goodness there is.
We're nowhere near there yet. No.
there is always reason for hope. So that's good. Hey, as long as we have police officers like you and this department, there is always reason for hope.
But we can't do our job without the public, and this is what people forget. You know, you have police officers that do these great jobs. You have paramedics and firefighters, but it's the public who enable us to do this job. And also, people often forget that police officers are just members of the public.
That's true.
You know, there's nothing special about them. So it's not just the police; it's the public as well.
Yes. But wow. Let me ask you. The last question is: what role do you think faith and spirituality play in solving communities' problems?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So I think it's actually very relevant to what you just spoke about. Is there any optimism in times like these? And I'll tell you why. I think spirituality and faith, we're not talking about specific faiths. It could be any faith. It could be, Islam. It could be, Christianity. Exactly.
Christian.
Faith is faith. And I think if you have faith and belief in a certain religion, they are all generally the same in that they have the same set values. And actually, it's the values that we now live by. You know, you look at the 10 Commandments: thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not murder. It's pinned into our rules and our laws and our legislations. So if you have faith in religion, faith that there is a greater good, faith that there is what you do now you'll be rewarded for later on, then I think it creates a better society. I think it creates people who can get through their challenges. You know, if you're having a really troubling time, but you know that when you overcome this time, when you do good, you'll be rewarded later on. I think that is amazing and incredible and beautiful. And I think even if you don't believe in a specific faith or religion, it's still the same thing. Faith for me is just faith that you should do good and be good. And if you do that, you'll be rewarded later on. So I think those who perhaps don't have faith, I think they might find it a little bit more harder to get through challenges. So faith for me is really important. In terms of our diverse communities, I feel like we are getting away a little bit from faith, and it's getting harder and harder to pass it down to our future generations. But I think it's so important. You know, if you look at historically, how did the black community get through slavery or the various things that they got through? It's because they had faith. It's because they had a belief that things would get better, and they were right. You know, they believed in a higher power, so it didn't matter what happened to them. You know, they got through it. And when you look around the world at some of the issues that are going on globally, you know, some of their beliefs is so inspiring and beautiful. So I think it's so important, really, really important. And I think even the people who perhaps don't have a religion, when they sit there and they're thinking to themselves, how can I get through this? Or please help me. They're still praying to somebody. They're still asking for help from somebody.
Absolutely.
And the same person will answer them. So faith for me is really important.
I really like that. We have been going around London actually talking about the fact that Great Britain was great and is great for a particular reason. And the reason is that the consciousness of the people, the foundation of this nation was based on solid ground. Whether you believe, you as a Christian, if you say, well, I am a Christian and I follow the values of Jesus Christ, or you're not a Christian and you are of another faith, if a Christian or a person of another faith follows the values of that faith, everybody benefits. There is law and order, as you said. You talked about the 10 Commandments. Whether you are of the Jewish faith, Christian faith, Islamic faith, you still abide, if you truly are
Yeah.
of those faith, you still abide by the same principles of the 10 Commandments. And so if everybody
Yeah.
had a level of faith, the whole society benefits.
Absolutely, yeah. So on that, I would say people often don't realise the Abrahamic faiths. They're all very similar, you know, and all of our laws and legislations, as we said, come from that. So even if you don't believe in faith, you're still almost abiding to those things. And yeah, I would 100% agree with you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, it's
Absolutely.
been such a fantastic time.
Thank you
with
very much.
Sergeant Thomas. Wow. We got to do this again.
We will, yeah, absolutely. Let's do lots more.
I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
thank
being
you.
around the globe.
It
with
was my
Dr. G.
pleasure. Thank you.
All right.